new questions this morning over law enforcement's response to the protests which themselves were against police brutality. Demonstrations were almost exclusively peaceful yesterday at events held all across the country, including in Brooklyn, New York. But when that march in Brooklyn went past an 8 p.m. curfew, officers charged the crowd using batons and chasing people down who were trying to avoid arrest. Our national correspondent, Jericka Duncan, is outside Brooklyn's Barclays Center, which has been a rallying point for these demonstrations and where that protest started. Jericka, good morning.
Good morning to you. This was the 7th straight day that we've had so far of mostly peaceful protests here in New York City, and thousands more are expected to gather in a nearby park later today and cross the Brooklyn Bridge in honor of Floyd's death.
The other 3 officers are being charged.
Hundreds of protesters in New York City erupted in cheers after hearing the 3 other former officers involved in George Floyd's death will now face charges.
What did you make of that?
I think it's the right decision, obviously, but I still don't think it's enough. It's a bigger problem than just George Floyd. This isn't the first, and it won't be the last.
The issue will be whether they can take it through the court system and have convictions.
New York protesters continued peaceful demonstrations Wednesday. But after an 8 p.m. curfew went into effect, NYPD officers cracked down on demonstrators in Brooklyn. Witnesses say there were no calls for the crowd to disperse, and in a chaotic scene, police used their batons to physically move a large crowd of protesters. Some fell to the ground and others were restrained.
The protesters were actually moving as they requested, and they were still pushing them and hitting them. I saw cops actually diving at protesters. One person got hurt.
We're just walking, we're moving.
Police also seen chasing some of the protesters as they left the area.
Move! Get out!
It was in sharp contrast to Seattle, where the mayor canceled the city's nightly curfew because of the size and peaceful nature of the crowd. And in Detroit, the demonstrations were also allowed to run long. Police Chief James Craig.
They're peaceful, as everybody can see. There's no problems. They want their voices heard, and we support that.
Today, Governor in Virginia, Ralph Northam, is expected to announce the removal of the statue of Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general. A number of protesters have been putting signs on there, spray painting signs to end white supremacy. Now, historians will say that Robert E. Lee was not for slavery, but he obviously supported the Confederacy. And Anthony, weeks before the Civil War, it was the vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander Stephens, that gave a speech, and in it he said, "With us, all of the white race, however high or low, rich or poor, are equal in the eyes of the law. Not so for the Negro."
Well, Jericka, as we know, there are many Confederate general statues down the main promenade there in Richmond, and they've been a point of dispute for quite a while. Thank you, Jericka.